So welcome to this lecture. This is the first lecture of a series organized by the Amsterdam Sustainability Institute. And that is a kind of umbrella institute here at the VU, which brings together researchers with an interest in environmental issues, sustainability issues. I was asked to organize a series on waste. So I thought, okay, nice, I will do so. And because one of the activities of the ASI is organizing lectures. And a bit about my background for those who don't know me, some know me very well. So my name is Freek Colombijn, and for the native speakers of English, the correct pronunciation of my first name is Freek, and not Freak. So it rhymes with cake. Do you have any bachelor students of mine here? Because this is always the standard joke at the first lecture, I'm an anthropologist and historian by training. Since 1985, I've been doing research in Indonesia. So geographically speaking, my focus is on Indonesia. And for the last couple of years, or more than a decade, actually, I've been looking at waste. But I've also done other research going back to the 16th century of Indonesia. I've done some research on waste management in Hengelo, the Netherlands of all places, food bikes, food bikes, a specific system. And recently I've done research on kidney dialysis patients in the Netherlands. Very interesting, but today I will talk about waste. So this is the program. Roughly 2/3 will be a general introduction to the theme of waste and thereby to the whole lecture series. A third is about my own research in Surabaya, Indonesia. If incidentally you think, oh, but I had come for the last part, but nobody's saying so, then I could speed up. I could speed up a bit and focus on the. And since this is a small group, so that in a way that really is that's great, because that means we can make it much more interactive than if this hall would be packed with hundreds of people. So I don't know how much is being recorded, but if you see me, I'm looking at the lecture hall, and there are really hundreds of people, but there are also still empty seats. Introduction. So that is this part. So this is part, the introduction is what I've just did. It's part of the lecture series of the ASI. And the title of the whole series is Waste, Inevitable Evil, Avoidable Curse, or Precious Resource, ? Then about the magnitude of the problem. It's in the news all the time. And once you're sensitized, you see it all the time in the news. So this is from just 3 days ago. Let me read out a bit. At the head of this is from the BBC, at the head of beautiful Loch Long sits one of Scotland's biggest plastic problems. A combination of prevailing winds and the rotation of the earth drive litter up to the loch to create what is known as the Errichar litter sink. About 62,000 items wash ashore every year, and most comes from Glasgow. This is microplastics found in brains of humans from just 2 days ago. This is really scary, I think. So research that in 1 gram of brain tissue, 5,000 micrograms of plastic was found. And if you calculate this, how much could that be in a full brain? Then it's several grams of microplastics in our brains of humans.
I think I read with that article that it's equivalent to 1 whole plastic spoon.
It's 1 plastic spoon, exactly. Very good. Then, since I'm also looking at recycling in Indonesia, but in 1 year, 7 recycling companies in the Netherlands went bankrupt, and most of them are not just companies, but they're high-tech, innovative companies, but they go bankrupt anyway. And the main reason is that oil prices are so low that you cannot it's very difficult to compete with plastics made from recycled plastics, to compete with plastics made from virgin oil. And this is from an environmental perspective, this is a disaster. Then waste can mean all sorts of things. Dozens of ships have been left behind on the IJsselmeer lake of the Netherlands. People, I no longer need my boat, so they leave the vessel behind, and it's it's a bit a nuisance to take care of it. When I entered this lecture hall, there was some paper here on the ground, and I threw it away. And then, why don't you throw it away in the dustbin? And why don't you take care of your boat if you don't use it anymore? This is, I'm not really cheering you up, right? It's all bad news. Let me read out. Countries have failed to reach a landmark agreement on tackling plastic pollution after more than 2 years of negotiations. So for 2 years, countries have been negotiating. What can we do about it? Then the negotiations collapsed. The deep divisions remained between a group of nearly 100 high ambition countries, calling for plastic to be phased out, and oil-producing nations who warned this would affect the world's development. So the oil-producing nations were against phasing out the use of plastics. Then you can find similar news every year. It really fascinates me. So people climbing up the Mount Everest, they leave behind a lot of waste because it's exhausting. And then you have equipment and other things, and they take it up and they don't want to take it down again because, that's too much effort. And then every year you have a rescue operation organized by the Nepalese state. So this year they collected 11 tons of rubbish plus 4 dead bodies. There's an estimate of over the height of 8,000 meters. There is roughly 50 tons of waste left behind, plus around an estimated 200 corpses. Sorry, I'm laughing. It's very sad. Mount Everest or the Himalayas, and this is how it looks. This is so sad. Just a few weeks ago, a young seal in the Netherlands was found and he was baptized Freek. And he was very ill, and they found a lot of plastics in his stomach. Then he died. So Freek is dead because of plastics. Yeah, he's cute, isn't it? And more figures. So this is from the IUCN, the International Union for Conservation of Nature. And they found, let me read out some of the conclusions. They estimated 14 million tons of plastic enter our oceans annually. That's the equivalent to the weight of 5 blue whales entering our environment every hour. So 5 blue whales of plastic, the equivalent, enter the oceans every hour. And then ocean garbage, there are also ocean garbage patches that are basically large accumulation of trash that gather together and float in our oceans. And will you close the door? Yeah, thank you. And there are at least 5 of these giant garbage patches in the oceans, and the biggest measure around the 3 times the size of France. So these are huge. And then which countries produce most plastic waste? So this is a list of the top, not the top 5, but Germany is the highest in the rank of the European countries. I put in Indonesia because we will speak about Indonesia later. But these are essentially the biggest country. So it's not so surprising they're producing most waste. This is more interesting then. This is about the mismanaged waste index. And the mismanaged waste index is the sum of uncollected and improperly managed waste divided by the total amount of waste generated. That means if you have an MWI, mismanaged waste index of 100, that 100% of the waste you generate is mismanaged. Tanzania is one of those countries, but they have very little plastic consumption per capita, per annum, per year. And then you have, now, for instance, the United Arab Emirates. They have a high MWI, but they also have a high plastic consumption per person per year. And then you can look it up all yourself. China is actually quite good, because often in Europe we think, oh, but China makes a mess of its environment. But I think that negative judgment is not justified. And you can also see, okay, you can see it for yourself. And then if you have a global map, it looks like this. And the dark blue countries are the countries with the highest mismanaged waste index. If there are no questions, comments, then...
Can I ask something?
Yeah, please do.
Plastic waste or waste in general?
This is plastic. Yeah, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. And that almost, if there are no other questions at this moment, naturally brings me to the next issue, and that is that often people speak about our society, the global north, Europe today. This is a waste society or a rubbish society. And so what, is that justified? Are we wasting so much, more than other societies, more than in the past? And has this changed over the years? And in a way, you understand why we speak about, oh, this is a waste society. Again, I can give examples. I can, so like this one, 20 billion disposable diapers per year in the USA. Well, that is a lot. And partly, why are we wasting? And this is also a bit your issue, Jan Willem. We are addicted, it looks like we're addicted to plastic. And this is an example from Indonesia, from my own field work. So you can buy snacks on the street in Indonesia, and they're delicious. You know, you're nodding, you've been in Indonesia, or you are in Indonesia? No, but it looks, yeah. And it's dinner time, so now, oh wow. And you can wrap it up in banana leaf. And that's perfect, because it's biodegradable, it's very cheap. You cannot think of a better way to wrap up food than in banana leaf. But this is more from when I first went to Indonesia. People use less and less banana leaf, but they use paper bags made from paper thrown away by offices. And earlier research, I did research on, among others, the municipal government of the city of Padang. And I love to buy snacks at the back of the town hall. And I always would check carefully, oh, what kind of paper is this? Because sometimes it was very precious information for me. But still not that bad. But of course, banana leaf is better. And now, so for instance, I bought 2 apples at the supermarket, and then I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces of plastics just to buy 2 apples. But this is progress. Sudah maju. So, and yeah, the example is from Indonesia, but really, of course, I could give similar examples from the Netherlands. Yeah. So in no way do I want to suggest that, please come in. In no way do I want to suggest that we are doing any better than Indonesia. Um, so, what do we mean by waste? So before this, the Waste Society, what do we mean by waste? This is a definition from the new Oxford Dictionary of English. It can mean several things. The third one, a large area of barren, typically uninhabited land. This is the original meaning of waste, but now we use it, and especially in the context of this lecture series, in the second meaning, material that is not wanted, the unusable remains or byproducts. That's interesting that we tend to think of waste as something not wanted or not usable. And clearly, later in this lecture, I will contest this definition and think, yeah, but in a way, perhaps we do want waste, and we can make good use of it as well. But and you have synonyms like rubbish, litter, garbage, trash, and when we speak about waste, it can still mean many different things. But we, in the discussion, and therefore your question was so appropriate. Often it's limited to just plastic waste, or household waste, or plastic waste, but it can be much more. So you can think of electronic waste. And perhaps you know these images of scrap yards in China, where thousands of people are taking apart computers or cell phones, and with a lot of poisonous material. You can think of, this is the biggest volume of waste in Europe, in many countries, construction waste. So if you demolish buildings, this is in volumes, this is far bigger than other forms of waste. Or organic waste, food waste. And that begins with a lot of food that's growing, but it's not even harvested, and that's also already wasted. And you can think of nuclear waste, and you can think of ship breaking. I have later have some images of ship breaking yards. It's fascinating. And you can think of, and we have only six lectures, and we can't do everything, but I've considered inviting somebody who can tell about medical waste, not medical waste of, again, plastics, but what if a leg is amputated? And so I have a daughter of mine who worked last week, incidentally, at an internship at a veterinary clinic, and the tail of a dog was amputated, and I tried to figure out, yeah, what happened to the tail? And if I can tell, this is confession, but don't tell others. When I was adolescent, my appendix was, I had an appendicitis, and my appendix was taken out, and they returned it to me in a small bottle with formaldehyde. And that felt good. So I was at least in two parts, but I was still complete. And one part was, and I was really emotionally attached to it. And then after years, decades later, it fell off my table and the glass broke. And yeah, that was what to do with my appendix. So I just threw it away in the dustbin. Can you take this out of the recording? but so yeah, waste can mean many different things. But so having made a preliminary effort at of defining what do we mean by waste, so it can mean many different things, and then let's go back to the question: do we live in a waste society or a rubbish society? And here I warmly recommend this book by Martin O'Brien, A Crisis of Waste, ? And he's a historian. He has done research in about Great Britain, and he argues several things. So one is that, well, first, we are not our society, our contemporary society, is not producing more waste than, say, 100 years back. And he has done extensive historical research and statistics, and so he gives a lot of hard facts, data. And that is partly because at the time there was people used coals to heat houses, so there's a lot of ashes and what's that called? Cinders, I believe, ashes. So there's no increase in weight in the weight of the waste. There's a change in composition, but what is more, waste has for centuries has been very valuable. And he makes the argument that if you think of the Industrial Revolution, this was driven by technological innovations. Now, this in itself is already totally incorrect, but let's for a moment suggest it was driven by technological innovations. And then he argues, yeah, but why or how did the British and later others manage in disseminating information about these new steam engines? And they need to print books or leaflets or newspapers, and for printing you need paper, and paper was made of rags. And rags is wasted cloth. So rags were an essential, he argues, without rags, no industrial revolution could not have taken place. And agents, hang on, there's a slide here. So we should not dismiss waste as rubbish, it's a resource. So this is somebody making paper from rags. And there were agents going around on the countryside buying up rags. And it was so important that England banned the export of rags at a certain moment. It's a strategic good, and it was no longer allowed to export rags. Then this was followed by France, by Spain, Portugal, and the Netherlands. And then Great Britain had to import rags, again waste, from as far as India, Australia, and United States. So this is an early example of intercontinental trade in waste. And so the saying goes, rags make paper. This is an old, an 18th century poem. Rags make paper. Paper makes money. Money makes banks. Banks make loans. Loans make beggars. And beggars make rags. So, yeah, waste, but we are not more wasteful. You cannot say waste is more important nowadays than it used to be in the past, at least according to Martin O'Brien. I'm rushing through the slides, but it's okay, right? So then we have more time for discussion or whatever you want to do. So this so much for the introduction to the theme of waste, and then in the lecture series we will have different approaches, and so there is a lecture series, 6 meetings. This is the link to it, and but probably you have already found it, and this is the program. So in 2 weeks' time, and it's a bit biased towards anthropologists, sorry, but I've looked for as possible diverse speakers, so we get different views on the issue of waste. So the first one is Irene Stengs, and she will talk about sacred waste. And yeah, I shouldn't give away her examples, but for instance, today was just a few hours ago, there was on the NOS news website an issue about the Grenfell Tower in London. And about 10 years ago, there was what's that called? Yeah, big fire. What's that called in English? Big fire. 72 people died, and the building is still there, the Grenfell Grenfell Tower, and now real estate developers want to demolish it. But the relatives of the people that died in the fire, no, we want to keep it. So it must be kept as it has become sacred waste. The whole building is a piece of sacred waste. Now, she will discuss many of these examples. Then we have Verisa Lenders, and I asked her, can you please give a lecture about, if we have several grams, 1 spoon of plastic in our brains, what does it do to our bodies? How is that bad? Or is it, that's, certain things happen, but, and she's done research, she's focusing on the mothers and the children. Then Raymond Gades, and I asked him, can you please solve this issue for me? Because you hear, again and again you hear, so we try to separate waste at the source, but then is that any good? So you hand in your glass and plastics and paper separately, but then there are rumors, yeah, but then at the landfill it's all mixed, or in the incinerator it's all mixed again, so is it any good? So he will talk about the economics of and hopefully about, I don't know exactly, but hopefully also about these high-tech recycling plants. Why is it so difficult for them, economically speaking, to survive? Then we have Jan Willem Wieland here on the front row, who will raise the issue. If waste is a problem, and I think we all agree, more or less agree on that, in itself it's a problem. Who's responsible for solving this? And is that consumers or producers? Or I slightly misphrased it, but please correct me if I get it wrong. And then, so here because we were running out of time, there was a program of 6 lectures, but there were so many topics. So now 2 topics are combined that are more or less related. But I really emphasize, especially since you're in the room, it doesn't mean that these topics are less important or less interesting, but it's just, okay, it's more or less by coincidence it developed this way. Madura Rao used to be from the VU, but she just moved to the University of Maastricht. So Jan Willem is a philosopher. Madura Rao will speak about food waste. And then we have an historian or archaeologist. In the last lecture will be about Amsterdam. So Amsterdam is partly built on waste. And he will give us an historical overview. And then we end with Mara Vos. She's a former student of ours and also doing research in Amsterdam on people that collect cans from dustbins on the street to sell them. Mostly homeless people or people without a stable income. And she said to me, Freek, I love to give a presentation here, but then I want to bring somebody in the lecture hall who's doing this themselves. So I don't know whether she will succeed. That's the program, and then we have many different perspectives on the study of waste. And please come. You're very welcome, and bring your friends and families as well. Then I'm getting a step closer to my own research, but first you can discern 3, but also 4, 5, 6, 2, whatever. But following one particular article, you can discern 3 approaches to waste, the study of waste, in anthropology or in perhaps social sciences in general. And the article is from Patrick O'Hare. And the first is the so-called symbolic structuralist approach. And then people always refer to a famous anthropologist, Mary Douglas, in the book Purity and Danger. The first year, only a few copies were sold, but it's a so-called sleeper. Over the years, it really has become... You're nodding? You know Purity and Danger? No, but you're nodding anyway. Now, it's one of the most influential books in anthropology. And her argument is that what is considered, she doesn't speak about waste, but things that are polluting. That is because they don't fit into classifications. So we make classifications all the time, and then you have things that don't fit into the classifications. They are considered polluting, and they're considered dangerous by society. And it can also go the other way around. So things that are dangerous, then they are considered polluting. If I can give one example, because in many ways I'm so angry about what's happening in the United States, but one of the things that Donald Trump is saying now is, so we have males and we have females, but non-binary people don't fit into these classifications, so we don't want them anymore. They don't fit into his classifications. They are considered polluting American society, and they're considered dangerous, and they are excluded. It really makes me mad. Sorry about this. I was in some good mood, and now I'm distracted by Donald Trump. I shouldn't. So the standard phrase of Mary Douglas is a matter out of place. And what is fascinating is that many anthropologists writing about waste the way we're doing it now, like waste in the dustbin, they all refer to often refer to Mary Douglas. But they haven't read this book until the last page, because towards the end of the book she says, yeah, but waste in the dustbin, this is not polluting or dangerous, this is waste in the right place. So she's often misquoted or misused, because only things that are matter out of place are considered polluting. And that can be extended to, for instance, as you know all too well, to waste pickers. So, oh yeah, but because you're handling waste, and then you're considered polluting, and you don't belong to our society. So it comes with negative stigmatization. But this is the quote. So page 197, a few readers, I must admit, get to this page. Rubbish is not dangerous. It does not even create a biggest dance. So you can read it faster than I can read it out. Oh, and then misclassifications. This happened a few months ago. This is at the Lam Art Museum in Lisse, in the Netherlands. And there's a piece of art in the elevator consisting of 2 empty beer cans. And then a repairer of the elevator saw this and thought, this is waste. This is matter out of place. This is an elevator, and there shouldn't be empty beer cans. So he threw away the piece of art. And fortunately, it was rescued, undamaged. But this is quite common. There are more examples. So these are 2 famous examples from famous artists. Damien Hirst, simply thrown away. This was destroyed forever. And here, not the whole piece of art was thrown away, but this bag with waste, which is part of the art. There's even a line drawn around it, but nevertheless, it was thrown away. And some of these are, yeah, a million, Damien here, millions of, I don't know, it's expensive. There was a question here, or?
Why is it considered art?
Yeah, why is it considered art? This is in the next lecture series. This is about waste and not art. This is another, yeah, I love this. This is also a piece of art made of plastics. But here there can be no confusion, is this art or is this waste? Then one critique on the work of Mary Douglas is, yeah, interesting, but there is also a hard physical reality. So it's not only about making classifications and what is matter out of place, but there's also a physical reality, and certain things are, yeah, waste, and they are a problem, and in a building, a university, or a city, you need to get rid of your waste. You need to handle it. So, for instance, when you speak about the reduce, recycle, that is an economic materialist approach, and then it's extended. So it's no longer just those three, but it's a whole series and begins with, then we truly have a circular economy when you refuse to consume and refuse to generate waste. But this is all, you can say this is all part of this economic materialist approach. And then this is part of the materialist approach is what is called political ecology. And then you think about, there are always political interest not political interest in the sense of this is discussed in parliament, but there are winners and losers, there are interest, and power is involved, and people with most power, they will have the biggest say in waste. And there's a beautiful quote here. This one I will read out. Affluence produces abundant waste, while poverty does not. Poverty encourages efficient reuse and recycling of waste materials, while affluence does not. And urban livelihoods built on resource conservation and recycling, but ironically and tragically, are predicated upon persistent inequalities in income and consumption, because then you go to waste pickers. So we will talk about waste pickers in 5 minutes. And one of the reasons why people are willing to do this work of waste picking is because they are poor and they don't have so many alternative sources of income. One of the best examples, this is really, I find this extremely fascinating, is a ship breaking in Bangladesh. And you must Google, but not now, after we're done, Google for videos on YouTube, and it's even more fascinating. But yeah, these ships are, you can use them for around 25, 30 years. And then either you let them float in the ocean, this just adds to the ships on the IJsselmeer. But there's a lot of scrap iron, so it's worth a lot of money if you take them apart. And so this is also waste. And one of the countries, the country where it's most done is Bangladesh, and it's partly because labor is cheap, and partly because environmental regulations are weak, or they are strong but weakly enforced. So this is where you can do it for the lowest costs. And so what you have people, they buy a ship for, say, $5 million, and then you let it take apart, and then you can make $1 million, so 20% profit. And it's really a good business. And you have specialized captains who are able to get these ships on ashore. And then they use, what's it called? Cutting torches, snijbranders, cutting torches, but also physical power. Partly they are just torn apart, and so yeah, that leads to spectacular images. But also it's quite dangerous, and also with asbestos and things like that. So literally every year people will die doing this work. Yeah, so partly it's just hard physical labor. Fascinating, isn't it? Or is this just me? Okay. And then the final approach, the intersubjective and post-human approach. Here the idea is that when we study waste, we should look at networks of humans and physical infrastructure, but also animals, so non-human actors, and all together they do something with the waste. And in the process, subjectivities are created. That means that people get certain identities in their interaction with the waste. But especially the non-human actors are fascinating. So this is a nice article, only 3 pages, about a landfill in the Czech Republic, but then a lot of the waste is taken out of the landfill by ravens, and they litter the whole forest with things. And the ravens are really smart, so humans cannot outwit them. They try everything to stop them, but humans are unable to do so. And then many other animals make use of the waste. So it's a huge system. And this is also, now I have good news. So far it has been a very depressing lecture, but this is good news. So because of global warming, there are more and more rats in cities, not just in the Netherlands. This is research done in many different countries. But it has a very positive effect on the waste, because the rats are living in the sewage system, and they eat a lot of fat. And we throw away, so we cook and then we throw away fat and that is clogging our sewage system. And then the rats are helping, so they're part of the system of getting rid of the waste. Okay, you're still with me? Yes. Then, now this is where I get enthusiastic. This is my own research about waste management in Surabaya. Surabaya is a large city in Indonesia. It has a lot of waste. And so what I'm doing is I'm studying how does the city get rid of its waste. And what I do is especially household waste. Again, this is not the biggest volume of waste, so construction waste is more important, but household waste, literally everybody has to deal with household waste. So this tells me a lot about how people think about the question, why can't people behave in a sustainable way, knowing that they're not doing it? This is scary, but also fascinating. This is a drawing made by, so I talked to waste pickers, I talked to waste dealers, I talked to owners of large factories employing hundreds of people who recycle goods, and also talked to municipal servants of the cleansing department. And this was a drawing made spontaneously by one of those civil servants, and since then, every time, because I go there again and again, I ask them, can you please make a drawing for me explaining how does it work? But this was the first one made spontaneously, and I was so proud. I have a pointer, but sometimes, oh yeah, it works. It begins here. The warga means the people or the residents, and most neighborhoods are responsible themselves, at least in the city of Surabaya. They must hire somebody who collects the waste from door to door, and that's done in carts like this one. It's a very nice drawing. Then it's brought to a TPS. You see that a little to the right in the screen. And the TPS is a temporary collection point of waste. Around. This is too much high tech for me. This is such a pushcart. So you see how nicely it was drawn. And then the waste is brought to these temporary collection points, and it's thrown in the skip. And then I don't need this pointer at all. And then it's by PEMCOT. So on the top of the page is written PEMCOT, and PEMCOT means municipal government. And the municipal government has trucks, and the trucks bring the waste to the landfill. There's one landfill at the edge of the city, and the truck is so important in the imagination of the civil servant that it's even drawn twice. So this is because this is the civil servant. And then at the landfill, and there are also details with figures, and so he makes calculations. Then at the landfill, these trucks empty their load. And then what is really important for them is there's an incinerator, and they're very proud. And I only recently discovered, this is really in Indonesia very innovative. This municipality has an incinerator, and they are generating electricity from the waste. So this is the state view. Now you have some bigger, but the same images, but now you see them a little better, because they are bigger. Nice. And this is then the whole drawing again. And then if you talk to civil servants, they say there are several problems. One is that the landfill, Bono is the name of it, it's filling up. So we need to think about a new area that we can use as landfill. We need a new contract for an incinerator, to build a new incinerator. That's a problem. It's also a huge opportunity, because when you hand out contracts, there's always money to be made, also for individuals, civil servants. And then, sorry about the typo, the population is not yet ready for separation at home, at the source, because that is the ideal. This is what everybody's doing in Europe. Well, we know that's not true, but that's the idea. Everybody in Europe or United States is doing this. This is modern, and we Indonesians, we want to be modern. And please correct me if you say, Freek, this is nonsensical, but we are not yet there. And a bloom, so it's a word, not yet, but it can mean endlessly. And of course, people in the Netherlands are not separating at the source as well. I mean, some of us do, but many others don't. And so I really want to emphasize, in no way are we handling the environment better than Indonesians or anyone else.
Did they say why this was the case? Is it infrastructure that's the issue, or
that people don't separate at the source? It's a bit, I don't know, it's a bit in the attitude of civil servants, and this really is a colonial heritage, because if I talk to civil servants nowadays, I get exactly the same text as I read in 19th century colonial reports written by Dutch civil servants. So there's something of an attitude the people don't know. The people don't understand. And we civil servants, we do, and we will educate them. But of course, it's not that. In reality, it's much more complicated. And so this is what I observe. So one is the board says, dilarang membuang sampah di sini, prohibited to throw away waste here. So this is where you find waste, of course. Actually, when I started my research, I thought I've been working in Indonesia for many years. I know Indonesian cities really well, and they're really dirty. Then I was sensitized. I started to look at it, and I discovered, oh, that this city is really very clean. And you have some places, like here along a railway track, then there is waste, and in some canals, but on the whole, Indonesian cities are really clean. As clean or as dirty as you like, as cities in the Netherlands. And the reason is, there are two reasons. One is that neighborhoods collectively clean the neighborhoods. And the second one is, waste is not waste, but waste is a resource. You can make money of it. So many people have an interest in collecting the waste. But then you have people who burn it. You have people, buyers, who go from door to door. The people here, somebody did separate waste at home, actually, contrary to what the civil servants is saying. And they buy it from home to home. And they're very small loops of waste. So this is somebody cleaning waste, cleaning bottles, and the bottles come, for instance, from pharmacies, or what's it called? Shops like selling perfume. So it's locally produced, sold in small bottles, and here they are cleaned, and then you can fill them again. So it's an endlessly complicated system. This is a person reusing paper bags, not recycling them, so they're collected and then used again. So this is a way of making money. You can take cables, sell the copper in it, or here, so you reuse. This is a tire, it's flattened, and instead of throwing it away, they cut a new profile in it, and then it's used again. Oh, that's great. and then you have animals, non-human actors. So it's an endlessly complex system. That is my conclusion. However, what I want to focus on, and this really is a major flow of waste in Indonesia, is beginning with waste picking, and then how much waste is being recycled. And the persons who collect the waste from door to door, so this is the beginning of the official system, that are paid by the neighborhoods to do so, they bring the waste to these temporary collection points. But then, and this is totally left out from the drawing of the civil servant, then they don't just throw it away in the skip to have it transported to the landfill, but they start sorting it out themselves very quickly to see what can be sold. He is, Samsu is his name, he was amazing. He's the very first waste picker I ever interviewed in Indonesia, and I started talking to him, and he didn't show any surprise. Why on earth does this European guy want to know this? It was just with one hand he was smoking, with the other hand he was, probably with the right hand smoking, with the other hand he was separating the waste, and he was answering my questions, and we had just had a chat, and then after a while, but that was not my opening question. I said, yeah, I'm interested because I'm interested in doing research on waste. People like him, and they don't sort very carefully, it's done very quickly, but it's his wife, and she's doing a second check of sorting out on the same location, specifically these plastic cups, which are worth a fortune. They have they make good money, because they get a guaranteed sum of money paid by the neighborhoods, and then they have varying additional income from the market, depending on market prices, from what they sell. So this is a good life. And when you talk to them, they speak about it. This is the best kept secret, and it's fun because they're out on the street. They meet a lot of people. They are quite independent, and so this is a good life. I mean, I don't want to romanticize it, but it's then it's brought to the landfill. And there are waste pickers, but here it's still, people choose this. Often they had salary jobs, and they have chosen, I want to leave my salary job and I work at the landfill, but it's less good. First, everybody can use this waste. You cannot claim this is my waste, contrary to the man I just showed to you. And moreover, the richest waste has already been taken out. So this is less valuable. It's more work. It's at the edge of the city. You're isolated. If they want to sell recyclables to a waste dealer, there's not much choice. The other man, he takes his phone and he calls certain waste dealers and asks, what is the price today? Not good. And he calls the next. But here, they are dependent on the one waste dealer, so the prices are not as good. But still, it's a reasonable job. I can give many more details, but I see we need to move on to discussion time as well. And again, I don't want to romanticize, but most of them are self-confident, and then she's having fun. At least she's having fun. And one thing that they emphasize is this work is it's dirty, but it's halal. So from Islamic perspective, ritually speaking, it's clean. And there's a contrast between what we are doing and, for instance, sex workers or people making money with the corruption. But our work, okay, perhaps my clothes are smelly, but it's halal. Next step, so waste is already separated in more refined categories. It's more and more refined. Then you go to sheds, and there they separated in even more refined categories. So refining it, the categories make the more specialized is an important part of the work. And this is, here it really becomes, more unpleasant. It's dark. There are flies. It's dirty work. It's less interesting. Yeah, you had to leave. You announced.
Thanks, Freek.
Good luck with your match. And then towards the end of the recycle chain, it really can become depressing. So his work is, so you have these plastic bags that has been sorted out. So it's a very specialized kind of plastics. Only the colors are diverse. Then before these plastic bags are sold to factories that make new plastic pellets out of these bags, they need to be cleaned. And the cleaning is done in the factory. But if the bags, and usually these are used for food, so there's food in it, rice or whatever, it's difficult to wash them in the washing tubes of the factory. So it's better if the plastic bags are torn apart before they are sold to the factory where they are washed and processed into plastic pellets. So his job from early in the morning till the end of the day is getting one. So this is a knife standing in front of him. All he's doing is taking a bag, ripping it apart on this knife, putting it aside. Taking the next bag, ripping it apart, putting it aside. Taking the next bag, ripping it apart, throwing the rice, grains of rice out of the bag, putting it apart. And so it's boring work, and since the added value is small, inevitably his income is also small. Okay, so I was enthusiastic about the people at the beginning of the recycle chain. This is not good work. So the whole process is separating in smaller and smaller categories, like Saguaro cactus. It's branching into smaller and smaller categories. But then there's a reverse process after it has been separated in very refined categories. Then it's collected again in bigger volumes, but of one particular good. So at first the waste was mixed, and then in the end it's very specialized. So here's a company just processing blue plastic, what's that called?
Caps.
Caps. Thank you. And cut into pieces. So that is their added value. So they cut it into pieces and then can be processed more easily by factories. So this is an example of a factory. And then you see there are many other problems, very different from the problems identified by the municipality. And that is, to begin with, the low status of the waste pickers. And that makes life at least less attractive. And sometimes it really makes life difficult for them. And we have here one specialist on the waste pickers in the room, and you know far more about it than I do. But the negative, the stigmatization of the work makes life difficult for them. The other one is that the municipality really doesn't like waste picking. So if you ask the civil servant, it's simply ignored. But it is a major part of the processing of the solid waste. And so it's not facilitated by the municipality. On the contrary, that makes the process more difficult. There are ways, especially at the end of the recycle chain. So this is where the efficiency can be increased. And there are also experiments. How can we make it more efficient? There are technical problems also in the Netherlands, by the way, that many plastic bags. So you have usually plastic bag to sell cooking oil. It has at least 2 thin layers of plastics. One is very strong because you don't want the bag to leak oil. But the other one is another kind of plastic that is nice to print. So we want to have nice colors print. But these are 2 different kinds of plastics. And it's difficult to separate. The high VAT tariff, that's a bit too complicated, but I can explain if you really want to know. And then the final thing is, once you have products made of recyclables, then the price is low, the status is low, which goes back to the beginning, low status of waste pickers. Waste picking is an eyesore in the city. In Europe, if this says made of recycled plastics, oh, we love to buy it. It's twice as expensive. Oh, but it gives me a good feeling. But in Indonesia, the logic is different. It is this twice. Why on earth would I buy something which is twice as expensive? And if it really is twice as expensive, fair chance somebody has cheated with it. So it was just made from virgin oil. So that's also a bit of a problem. But what we are doing is you pay more in that really doesn't make sense from many people in Indonesia. So to end, a few slides. This is from a picture from Brazil, and there you also have similar systems of waste picking, but here there's much more middle-class support for waste pickers, and they're considered environmental heroes. And the pushcards are painted by waves of artists, because you have in the museums you have exhibition of waste pickers, things like that. So their status is higher. This is a really interesting experiment where we still try to separate waste, but on a conveyor belt. So we work in teams, and then everyone is specialized in, so we throw the waste on a conveyor belt, and the first takes out, say, plastic bottles, and the second one takes out, and so on. So this is perhaps a way to at least give the work more status, and perhaps it's more efficient, but they do lose a lot of their freedom, because then, yeah, if it's conveyor belt, you are subject to the working hours of the whole team. So as a conclusion, I want to say first, waste is an important topic of study, but also a case of fundamental questions why we continue to behave in non-sustainable ways. Second, empirical studies are important, and we need to respect scientific knowledge. I'm highlighting this because, now we have so many politicians, again, Trump, but also in the Netherlands, where scientific knowledge doesn't seem to count at all, but it is important. Then recycling. So I'm doing research on recycling, but in the end, that is not. That also is not a non-sustainable way of getting a circular economy, because as long as we recycle, it means we're also consuming a lot, and that is an issue. But if other stages of these 8 or 10 steps in the R8 of R8 things of getting a circular economy, if we don't get to the greenest versions, then at the end recycling is important to get a circular economy. And then I'm always a bit surprised as anthropologist if I make this point that if you look at the recycling in Indonesian cities, what works really best in the end is just leave it to the market. So there are a few anthropologists who defend neoliberalism, but I think if you leave it to the market, then it works best. And but it could be or should be facilitated. And then very last, before last slide is this one. I was interviewed about exactly this topic a few years ago by a journalist from the Volkskrant, and I had a similar story, quite nuanced, but also optimistic or positive. And the article was perfect. And then there was somebody else, an editor responsible for looking for images, and thought, oh, I need to look for an image. And then they chose this image with the suggestion, oh, but these waste pickers, they're poor, they're miserable, they're very sad. This child labor, and there's some child labor, but very little. There's hardly child. I've seen very few children working. So yeah, this is, but this is, the image is totally wrong. It's totally misrepresenting what's happening. Questions?
This might not be a question, but more something that I thought of when you were saying this thing of how people who pick waste and process waste have a very low status in the society. So I'm from the Balkans, and in the Balkans we have the Roma minority, the biggest minority, which has the lowest socioeconomical status. And one of the main ways that they receive income is through recycling. So, for example, through old computers, through old aluminum. That's what Roma people tend to do in the Balkans. And there's this Bosnian Roma artist, Selma Selman. She won the Aben Amro Artist Award. She has her exhibition in Sedelijk right now. So what she does in this exhibition, what she did for the opening, she took 200 computers and she did performance art where she extracted gold from these computers. So if you're interested, you can go to the exhibition, and then from the gold she made from the gold that she extracts during these exhibitions, she makes small artifacts. But I think that for me was so fascinating, reclaiming this identity where her identity of being Roma was associated with these negative things of recycling and waste, etc. And now she's in a museum in Amsterdam extracting gold from computers, which they used to have a negative connotation. Now she brought a very positive picture.
She puts it on her head. Yeah, that's great. It was not a question but a comment, and thank you. Two things come to my mind now. And by the way, I'm allowed to mention your name in the mic, or we have two specialists here who know far more about this topic than I do. One is Rachma Ludvini Putri, and also doing research on waste management in Indonesia. And one thing that we also together try to find out is, because you say Roma, they are a specific group and they are doing this work. And you have the same thing in many countries where specific groups from a religious or ethnic minority are doing this job. In Cairo, famous the Zabalin, they're Christians, and they do this work. But we in Indonesia, we found that you cannot say it's a specific ethnic or religious group, so there it doesn't matter. If they're stigmatized, not because, they're Roma or... that's one thing. There's another specialist, Daisy Dira Yasmin. She knows all about social media. And what is interesting is, but you really need to delve more into it, is a waste picker, not in Surabaya, but in Jakarta, using social media, also very self-confidently this is the work I'm doing, and I'm proud of it. So it's, and I think it's not just nice, but it's really important. It's these kind of acts help to give a bigger place to recycling and give it its proper place in society. And for me, these people are environmental heroes. Actually, the Brazilian artist, so I showed one pushcart of a waste picker in Brazil. There's another nice one, but the picture is very vague. So that's why I didn't put it in a PowerPoint. But it says in Portuguese, one waste picker is doing more to the environment than the Minister of Environmental Affairs. That's a good point.
I had a question which I think builds on Milita's comment and also some points that you've just made now. When you were talking about your research in Indonesia, you mentioned stigmatization, so that the state looks down on waste pickers and actors, let's call them that way. And at the same time, you said that these people are selected by a given neighborhood. So I wanted to ask, how does that work? What's the mechanism there? How are these people selected? And whether there is stigmatization also within this context, or whether there's pride among everyone involved in those neighborhoods in recognizing that this is a worthy activity. I just find it really interesting that there's such a big contrast there.
Yeah. I realized now I should repeat the question on mic, else it's not properly recorded. And I'm sorry, because you really had an interesting... if there are other people with similar stories, I will try to bring the mic to you and you can say directly into the mic. At the neighborhood level, so they just hire somebody, and usually it's somebody from, it can be somebody from inside the neighborhood, usually it's from outside the neighborhood. In my experience, people don't know a lot about it, and it's certainly not a case of pride for the neighborhood. And if I ask, we put it outside, and then it's collected, and they don't even always know the name of the people, of the person doing it. But these positions are carefully guarded by the people who do have such a contract, because that's a guaranteed income, and they very carefully keep it to themselves or pass it on to a friend or a child, and they try to collect several, because usually they handle several of these neighborhoods. But you cannot say that I wouldn't say stigmatization is irrelevant at that level. No, also at that level, and we should not overrate the stigmatization, right? It's not like, it does give you low status if you do this kind of work. Rutger, you must correct me if you think I miss important things or add.
Yeah, so I just want to add a bit, because we have a different field sites. So you're doing research in Surabaya. I'm doing research in Jakarta. So in my finding, there is a like.
Just a second.
I think it's fine.
No, it's not fine, because else I need to. Can you put?
Yeah, okay. So yeah, I'm doing research in Jakarta. So there are some neighborhood that really what is that? Maybe we can call it slum. And in my case, there are a lot of most of the residents are waste pickers in that neighborhood, and they are doing that for their income for a long time. And what I find is that there is a stigma, because in Jakarta we have also the formal waste worker. The name is Orange Squad, because of the what's that, the uniform. So there is competition between informal waste picker as informal waste workers in refers to waste pickers, and also the formal waste workers in Jakarta. So there is also competitions, and I think the people around neighborhood is like, okay, I'm already paid for the orange quad. Why should I give the waste for the waste pickers? So there is kind of thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Now. This was really dangerous. It's very slippery here. So that's something I just recently learned. Not just recently, but so the system I explained of Surabaya is really unique for Surabaya. And there's a lot of local variation. And so what makes it so good in Surabaya, that's at the beginning, that this person who's collecting it from door to door is paid by a neighborhood and then selling it himself or herself, because both men and women are doing this. This function doesn't exist in Jakarta. So there are paid people paid by the municipal government, and they're collecting the waste. This is the Pasukan Oranje, the Orange Squad. And then waste picking, they are far less protected and have more of a problem than in Surabaya. And one thing I really want to emphasize, because one more time, is so I said, okay, but in the Indonesians there are, okay, two things here. One is things that you say in lectures, I would never dare to put it down in writing, because I make sweeping statements. Indonesia, well, 300 million Indonesians, how many? They're not all thinking the same way, like, So if you say, well, Dutch people, then you also get irritated. Dutch people, but we do things very different. That's one thing. The other thing is, if I said, oh, but there's this addiction to plastic, and it looks modern if you have your apple wrapped up in plastics and so on, and that's not a good thing to do. In no way do I want to suggest, oh, but we in Europe, we do things smarter or better or more environmental friendly than Indonesia. On the contrary, I could have given a story. I've also done research on waste management in Hengelo, in the Netherlands. And the municipality of Hengelo has really very thought out, innovative ways. How can we separate waste? And this is undermined by the... Is anyone from Hengelo? This is undermined by the residents of Hengelo, who just refuse to do it, and have all sorts of way of cheating, and so it's and again, yeah, I don't claim that I do. I'm not better than anyone else. I don't want to make such a claim. Okay, other questions? First you, then I go to you.
I was curious about what your opinion, what your thoughts are about the mechanization that will probably come in the coming decades.
Yeah.
When it comes to separating waste, processing waste, because there's such a big industry that's working on doing this, and there are so many people involved in it. And my question also comes a little bit from India. That's where where waste collection and segregation is very much connected to the so-called lower castes society, and it's very highly stigmatized.
Yeah.
Push to mechanize certain operations that are dangerous for people to do, but also this section of society that's doing it, they're not a minority. It is millions of jobs that are.
Yeah.
So there's also the question of, oh, then do these people lose their jobs?
Yeah.
They're not trained to do something.
Yeah.
So there's this conflict between, is technology in this sector something good, or does it mean that these people lose their livelihoods then?
Yeah.
From this.
Yeah, so at first I repeat the question for the recording. So here the question was, how about the mechanization? And perhaps that's a way of increasing efficiency, or that might be good, but then many people lose their job. And then you give another example from India, and India is, so you all have a similar industry, but there it's people from the lowest caste, or perhaps Dalit, who do this work. So very specific category, so that is at least is a difference with Indonesia. But still the same. If you have mechanization, then people are thrown out of work, and the same would happen in Indonesia. Yeah, that would be very sad if there's no alternative work, and especially because the way it's being done in Indonesia. So yeah, I go back to Indonesia. The way it's being done in Indonesia. So you also have. I could also give a talk here about other initiatives at the level of the neighborhood where people voluntarily separate waste, and there's a whole system and called bank sampah, waste banks. It's not half as efficient then as if you leave it to waste pickers. And I think if that works well, then and it's really important. It's the social function, the environmental function of this whole system is great. Then please encourage this and support it, and the state should support it instead of making life difficult for them. But there are ways how you can do it more efficient. So one thing, this I find it a very fascinating experiment, this work on a conveyor belt where you work in teams. Now, if that works well, that is a form of mechanization that is great. Another thing is that you see more and more. So you have these push carts, and now you have more and more people who use a motorbike, and they're not pushing the push cart themselves, but they just drag it with the motorcycle. Yeah, I mean, that's great. So these forms of mechanization are just fantastic. But other forms of mechanization, yeah, probably that will destroy a lot of employment, and I doubtful it will be done more efficient than it's being done now. So I would certainly not encourage the and also the government in Surabaya, they're really proud about their incinerator. And only recently I discovered, but this really is quite special in Indonesia. They're advanced. And many municipalities don't have an incinerator. And also in Europe, but we no longer have landfills, we incinerate, we burn waste. But if you burn it and you generate electricity, but the research is gone forever. So this is really not a good idea. It's much better leave it in landfills, sort it out again. Perhaps it's piling up, but it's better than if we want to generate waste, want to generate electricity. Well, there are better ways than burning waste.
Thank you.
But I guess also in India there will be governments who. So that is a problem in itself, the low status of at least at the beginning of the recycle chain. And that can be a push for local governments. We want to have other high-tech, quote-unquote, mechanisms, but it's not doing good. You had a question.
Yeah, kind of. I don't know. I hope I explained this properly, but I have kind of multiple questions in there. Maybe one is more of a comment, but I'm kind of curious why this is. I feel like if you look at these worlds where trash is like littered all around you, and you have to kind of go through this mechanism where someone comes to your house and you see this, and you also have like limited wealth and resources, etc. And waste is a resource. Why is waste more prevalent in those kind of places rather than seeing it as, oh, hey, this is actually a resource I can use? And I feel like they have more of like a detachment. Like I find that like even my parents who, you know, had this like Indian background, like even now with all this Western knowledge, they still see like, oh, it's just a plastic bag. Like, I don't care. Like, it's just a resource, and I'm you know, and they have this kind of separation from everything. But I find it should be like reversed. Like you can physically see this is being wasted and like, etc. And I'm kind of curious why that happens. That, yeah, like that becomes a reality. And then two, is like the economics built in such a way to have that happen because so many people in the society like rely on these sort of jobs and functions as well.
Yeah. Okay, there are two questions, and I hope I have understood them correctly, and if not, then just post them again. But one is being puzzled about the why is it that people look at waste the way they're doing it, and knowing that this is a precious good, but they still generate waste and throw away things so easily.
Yeah,
that's one question, and another question was. Say it again. What was the other question? Is the whole system of society organized in a way that facilitates these separation mechanisms? And these were the questions.
Yeah, and I think the first one is primarily more like you can physically see it, right? It becomes litter, and it becomes pollutants.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a very fundamental question, and I don't have a clear answer. So Jan Willem, who will give a lecture from a philosophical perspective, he will address this question. So who is responsible? Who feels responsible? Why do some people feel responsible for it and others not? He will do it in a very more general way, I presume, and not case-based. And I really find it hard to say. And but as a society, we in Europe, we in Indonesia, we in the whole world, we really need to think this over and think what can be changed in throughout society. First, why do we consume so much? Why do we consume the things that we consume? There are so many things that so you buy in vegetables and in the supermarket are all wrapped up in plastics. Why is that? I mean, all these kind of things. So don't you see that's not a good idea? And we can simply by building things smarter, we could make it much more sustainable. These plastic bags with the 2 layers, okay, because you do need the second layer because you need to print nice colors on your plastic bag of cooking oil. Can't we really buy a bag of cooking oil without a print on it? Why is that? And so in the design, we can do things much better. That's another topic which I really find fascinating, but I don't know anything about it. But alternatives for plastics, because we're again talking about plastics. My research, by the way, is also about glass and cardboard, but we talked about plastics. Alternatives of using plastic. So how you can use the, what's it called? Mycelium, the roots of mushrooms, and you can grow them in all beautiful shapes. And then you have chairs, plastic chairs based from mushrooms. Fascinating. And you didn't really get I didn't have a real answer to your question, sorry. But it was a good question anyway. Your neighbor.
So I see from your story that there is like a beautiful component also from the story down here, that the waste pickers and the collectors are partially paid for by the neighborhood, meaning I guess the state, and that the people after that do not necessarily get paid by neighborhood or state, but then have to do preparatory work before factories can process waste into different products. Still, you say at the end, the market is the best way to organize this. Why?
Yeah, first, so at the neighborhood level, this is not the state. This money is collected at the neighborhood level. So it's a neighborhood head, and he or sometimes she will go from door to door, or sometimes they will go from door to door and collect money from the residents. But that's just a minor thing. Yeah, I think it works well. The market works well because it works well. A lot of waste is being recycled, and yeah, again also glass, cardboard, and so on. And it's done through a market mechanism, and people are interested in it because it is not waste. It's a resource. You can make money out of it, and that's why people are interested in collecting it and start to sort it out. And without this step at the beginning of the recycle chain, the first steps taken by waste pickers, then the rest of the recycle chain doesn't exist. It cannot operate. Then you do have experiments with so again at the neighborhood level where residents are asked to sort out waste themselves. And for instance, I'm talking about Bank Sampach, the waste bank. And you can deposit your sorted out waste in the collection point. And just like you have a bank account, then it's weight, so many kilograms of cardboard, so many kilograms of different forms of plastics. That is so much money, and that's written on your bank account. And then once a year, you can go to the waste bank and you can collect your money. And this is very dear to the Indonesian state because now there are residents doing it themselves, and that is the ideal. But I'm quite skeptical because then they are not specialists like the waste pickers, so they make mistakes in sorting it out. And once they've sorted out, they sell the waste to the recyclables to waste dealers, but they don't know the prices very well, so they're fooled by waste dealers. So this system just doesn't work as well as just leave it to the market, and it begins with waste pickers, and then it goes the chain all up. Except, like this man ripping apart his plastic bags, that is. We should try to find. And here, by the way, mechanization could help. Yeah, it's an empirical thing. If you look, how is it done? what are the alternatives, then this works well.
What if you take that separation of market and state and you throw in a third actor, actually the people or the village, neighborhood? You could call it the commons. Is there an ideal way in your mind that this could be organized worldwide, that we could make waste a worldwide available resource for everyone? Commons that we can, you call this, steward together?
Yeah, the question is, can we make waste a kind of commons, and then at the global level? Yeah, well, perhaps we can, but I strongly doubt that is a good idea. And one thing that we try to avoid is ongoing transportation. So if a society generates waste, then please try to handle it locally, and don't consider it a commons. And now we generate waste, but people in Argentina are also entitled to our waste. So I don't see how that is making things, from an environmental perspective, making things any better. And commons. So there's the tragedy of the commons, the idea of Gerhard Hardin. It is very difficult to manage commons in a sustainable way. And then you have Elina Orstom, who has, for instance, ideas how you can manage commons in a sustainable way. But there are very specific criteria how to do that. And one is that commons must be localized with clear boundaries. And commons at a global scale, I really cannot imagine how that can be managed in a sustainable manner.
Wikipedia?
Sorry, Wikipedia?
That's a global common.
Yeah, but it's not waste.
It is in a sense, Wikipedia is like the waste of academics, the waste of extra knowledge that was out there that people put online and can be shared. In a sense, it's not a published article polished up as a peer-reviewed article to be published as a resource for academics, states, or companies. No, this is all waste knowledge.
Yeah, here the point is made, but we do have at least one successful commons, Wikipedia. But then you're saying that it's a kind of also form of waste because it's waste knowledge. But yeah, I beg to differ here, and I really don't see how this Wikipedia can tell us something about solid waste management.
Well, okay.
Can I first, before I go back to you, see whether there are other questions, and then if not, are there other questions? I'm also looking with one eye at
Well, I'm just curious, did they end up using a different picture for the, I think it was in the Telegraph?
No, this was from the Volkskrant. Yeah, it was published that way. Because they did check the text with me, but they didn't check so this is interesting. So these images, that's a different editor, and it's also separation, but now not of waste, but of text and image. They didn't check with me. Yeah. I suggest we wrap it up at this moment, and then I go up to you, and we can have a further discussion about comments. And thank you for being here, and I hope to see you again in 2 weeks' time with another lecture about sacred waste.